Hey guys, it's Esther from Mirror World Branding Team, and this is Mirror World Jam. We're doing a special episode today with Ryan, Jonas, Le, and Chris, talking about everything you need to know about crypto mobile.
Hey guys, I'm Chris. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Mirror World, and really excited to share more about our projects and what we're trying to build here at Mirror World.
Bridging Web 2 to Web 3 is really the talking town right now. And we've all heard a lot of stories about how people quitting their jobs on Web 2 just to start up a new project on Web 3. So what are the things that you think are important for a company to consider when deciding to bridge themselves with Web3 technology? Or what are the examples that you think is really successful in terms of combining the user experience of Web 2 with Web 3 ecosystem?
Right. So when I think about bridging Web 2 users to Web 3, I think about three main dimensions. One is essentially what are you building? So from the product side, what is the key utility that you're offering for different brands, for different software products? It's very different. And then the second part is essentially when you have chosen what you're building or you have an existing product, how do you communicate that story to the end user? So branding, right? And I think that's very different from traditional Web 2 branding. And the third part is essentially once you have the product and a very smooth narrative that essentially tells the story of that product and the utility of it, then that's when you think about go-to-market, or we've been actually discussing a different term, which is called go-to-community. So that augmentation of your existing brand and product strategy lies within the Web3 realm as well. So going back to the first part, from a product perspective, I think Mirror World itself actually started out because we thought that a lot of products, even though they have a smooth narrative and they have a community, there's a very hard time for them to onboard new users that are not familiar with existing Web3 tech stack. And the interaction for, let's say, DeFi, gamefi, for the past 2 years have actually not gotten easier, but actually harder. If you think about the pre-requirements to interact with a DeFi protocol, the amount of knowledge that you would have to start, let's say, buying into a GameFi project or a play-to-earn project, the upfront cost of buying an NFT, such and so forth. So we really think about what are the ways to actually lower the barrier. For example, a social login that is really easy to deploy, combined with a in-app wallet, whether it's custodial or non-custodial on the technical side. What that does is essentially users can log in with their Discord, Facebook, email, but really get that tied with a in-app wallet so that they can start transacting right away. And then in-game marketplaces is also the same thing, where we see that on the PC front, a lot of users can go to OpenSea and Magic Eden and transact with their MetaMask or Phantom wallet. But these are prerequisites that a lot of Web2 users actually do not have. So when I first joined Web3 space, I just wanted to start using one of their products and really experience like what it feels like to be in the crypto realm with a mobile app. But I couldn't do that without having the crypto wallets. So product side, I think those are some key questions to solve. And then branding obviously is going to be a second part that is really important. I think one really good example of like products bridging into Web3 and telling a different story and different branding strategy. Something I really like is Artifact. So RTFKT, Artifact is essentially a company that focuses on virtual fashion, virtual products that bridges brands like Nike, for example, their fashion line, and as well as their top hyped up shoes with digital NFTs and digital assets itself. And I think they do a really good job tapping into the potential of its holder community and dropping continuous benefits to the original holders of an existing key or the CloneX key, but also building a lot of cross-brand partnerships with digital artists as well as traditional artists, so bridging that gap. And all of their brand story really goes around the story of hype and that virtual assets scarcity.
Also want to talk about like when we're thinking about user experience, the first thing that came out is like login and authentication. So also wanted to like talk a little bit about because we all know that for companies in early stage, it's very hard to like build their own login and authentication system. And what are the like reasons that companies they need to get a SDK for Web3 login?
Yeah. So when you think about Web3 products, one really different trait from a Web2 product is that it's very global. Your user base is essentially authenticating and logging in from, excuse me, from all over the world, right? We're seeing, 50% of our growth is coming from Southeast Asia, Russia, Turkey, aside from just Europe and US and developed countries like that. So you really have to cater to a lot of different demographics, and there is very vague geographic location barriers between kind of these user groups. And I think one thing that leads to is essentially that you have to consider different ways to allow your users to log in with their socials, whether some countries might actually utilize Facebook and the others might utilize Google more, or Telegram, or WhatsApp, such and so forth. And I think for any company building up their own login stack that actually supports all of these and that potentially caters to different demographics is very, very difficult and takes a lot of time. When you're first starting out, obviously a lot of people try to build out the login with email themselves, and I wouldn't say that's difficult at all, right? In Web2, obviously there's Auth0, who grew to a very large scale, just doing social login. But I think in Web3, what is different is that your identity, which is your social login, is going to be tied to your wallet or your transaction. So you can't really stop at the social login part where you are getting into the product. You really have to combine that with a in-app wallet or just a mobile wallet that allows users to also transact with that identity. So you can combine those two together within your app. And I think adding on top of that layer is going to be a lot of different hurdles that companies have to get over. And we really think that there is a best practice that we see from developing our own games, where the user login tied together with the in-app wallet offers the highest conversion, highest revenue. And I believe that overall there will be less and less company building their own stack and building the same wheel over and over again, just because the service provider can always provide the most holistic service. Whether you look at companies like Okta, Auth0 for social login, or in gaming, we look at a aggregator of payment systems called Xsola, which aggregates 200 different payment methods in its product offering. So overall, I think not a centralized, but a standard service provider will replace the own tech stacks that these companies are building themselves.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jonathan. I go by Jonas. I'm currently serving as CTO at Mirror World. I work a lot with engineering and product team.
Hey guys, I'm Le, and right now I'm a system architect in the Mirror World. And before joining Mirror World, I was a typical Web2 engineer back in the San Francisco Bay Area.
So let's also talk about like bridging Web2 projects to Web3, because we all know that in many ways, like Web3 is just getting started, and Web2 is still the go-to choice for the majority of businesses. But clearly there are a lot of people who see the potential of whatever it's the blockchain technology or the narrative value in Web3, and really wanted to join in and build something out. And one of the things that companies care most about is user experiences. To make it as like friendly as possible. The first thing that we are looking at is the login and authentication process. And it's also the starting point for basically
or dApps. So can you guys tell us about how to build a Web3 login or some experience sharing would be great.
Yeah, let me tell you guys what you have to do. So first, you have to make sure your users have wallets installed on their browsers. If not, they have to open Phantom or some other app that has a browser and set up, wallets. And then you have to generate a message on your backend that the user has to sign. It's, you think of it like a secret that the user has to prove that they received this message from you. You should not only just send the message, your message should contain a nonce or a secret that changes every time they log in, and then your user signs that. That's usually where the pop-up happens, and then they click that, and then they approve, and then this signed message, you have to send it back to the backend, to your backend, and your backend has to verify that the signature is real. And then you can finally issue out the tokens that your user can finally use to access your services. So as you can see, it's a bit of an annoying process without the Mirror World SDK. With the Mirror World SDK, you can simply pull in your SDK and ask the user to log in, and they could use whatever solutions they want, whether it's Google, whether it is Facebook, Twitter, Discord login. You can also log in using email as well, and that will issue the authorization tokens that you may need to use both on your backend and also on the user's client. So yeah, it's very simple. It's literally to perform a login on mobile. I think maybe no more than 50 lines of code for you as a developer. At least on the web, I can prove this on the web and also on some native endpoints. So yeah, it is relatively simpler with Mirror World SDK. Yeah, maybe La has some.
Yeah. So Jonas just mentioned, like, from the developer experience, like maybe just a couple of lines, and you can have our like wallet solution or a private key solution or authorization solutions. But from the user's experience, it's also like the overall login process or authentication process should be no different from your typical like social auth login. So as your users, when they log into your D app, and the login process should be very similar to log into Facebook or some other like third-party app. The user just needs to type in the email or password or Facebook or Google or any other like social auth login. And in the background, and we will create a private key where we'll create a wallet for that users. So the wallet may be like the user may not know the wallet was created at all, like from the user experience like perspective. And also at the same time, as the in the Mirror World, we also like try to securely store the private key and make sure like even though as a common user or Web2 users, or like there are many users who are not tech savvy, right? Like they may not know how to store their private key securely or passphrase. So we can take care of those things. So as a user, you don't need to worry about like how the private key is stored, like whether or not your assets may be attacked or hacked.
Cool. Okay. So one more question before we jump into the next part. So you guys talk a lot about like the benefits and also how easy is it to use Mirror World SDK. So can you also tell us about like more specific, like how to authenticate Web3 users with our SDK? Like how's the process? How's the steps?
All right, the process is relatively simple. We have a dashboard for you to manage your developer. You can go to this dashboard and create an account, create an application, and that will issue you the tokens that you need to pass into the SDK. So you can go create it, and it's literally 5 minutes, and it's done. And then in your application, depending on wherever you're building, some people build mobile apps with Android, others building on Unity or iOS, others build with frameworks like React Native or say Ionic. So these you can use the TypeScript, JavaScript SDK. For Android, we have an SDK as well. For Unity as well, we have one, and for iOS, we're currently actually planning to start doing some work on it. And so you can put the API keys and the client ID that you got from the dashboard into the SDK, and call the login method, and it will log in.
Thanks for watching. And if you're interested in more content about crypto infrastructure, gaming, and mobile, please do subscribe to our channel. And we'll see you next time.